Welcome to Breakout Investors. Today we are speaking with the management of Intrusion, ticker INTZ, specifically the company's CEO, Tony Scott. Joining me on today's call is Breakout investor Aaron Warwick. This call is being recorded on June 23rd, 2022, and will be distributed via the Breakout Investor channel on YouTube and via our podcasting network. Look for Breakout Investor content wherever you subscribe to podcasts. We are on Apple, Spotify, Audible, and most other platforms. Supporting materials for today's discussion will be posted on the Breakout Investors collaboration app, available in the app stores and at app.breakoutinvestors.com. The application and much of the research content is free. After registering or logging in, use the search bar at the top right of any page. Type in the ticker and the results will give you a link to the research post for this presentation and to other discussion and research relating to today's company. Those of you already on the Breakout Investors platform can share your questions for the company using the Discuss tab in Aaron's breakout room. So let's get the call started with me handing the call over to Aaron.
Hey, thanks, Josh, and happy to have Tony Scott with us today, the CEO of Intrusion. I've enjoyed getting to know Tony over these past couple of weeks, talked to him several times about the company and what they've got going on, and I'm excited for him to be able to share the story with our community. I've been following Intrusion for a little over 2 years now, and it's been a bit of a up and down ride with them, but I think with Tony at the helm now, really comfortable with where things are going, and look forward to him sharing a little bit about that, including some of the past I'm sure we'll touch on as well. But mostly we're excited about the future. So with that, Tony, I'm going to turn it over to you to give an introduction to Intrusion and of yourself, and then we'll go to Q&A. I'm going to turn my camera off until we get to the Q&A, so it'll just be your stage. Thanks, Tony.
All right. Well, thanks for having us today. I really appreciate the opportunity to talk to this group. So I've been CEO here at Intrusion since mid-November of 2021. It's been a very interesting 6+ months. And I'll tell you the story of kind of how I got here, and then briefly, and then we'll go in terms of where we're going. So my background is I'm a serial CIO for some big organizations that probably many of you have heard of. Starting back in 2000, I was the Chief Technology Officer at General Motors. Then I went to the Walt Disney Company as CIO, then went to Microsoft as CIO for about 5.5 years. Went to VMware as CIO, and then got recruited to be the CIO for the U.S. federal government for the last 2 years of the Obama administration. And shortly after I was appointed to that role, we discovered the OPM breach, where 21 million identities had been compromised of people who'd applied for cleared positions in the federal government. One of the biggest breaches, I think, still to this day. And so I spent a lot of that time as federal CIO focused on cybersecurity issues and enhancing the cybersecurity practices and protocols in the federal government. And after that role, I joined with a partner, and we began acting as a front end for some family funds, investing in early stage cybersecurity companies, and also acting as an advisor to a bunch of large and small companies. Last summer, about a year ago, or a little less than a year ago, my partner Ross, who lives in Plano, called me and said, "There's this really interesting company in Plano, Texas called Intrusion that I don't know if you've heard of them or not, but they've gone through some pretty cataclysmic corporate events. The board has terminated the CEO, the stock has dropped precipitously. Things are not looking good for them, but maybe they have some IP that we could, pick up and merge with some other companies that we were working with. He said, "Do you want me to go have a look?" And I said, "Sure." And he did, and he called me immediately after his initial scan of the company, and he said, "I think we need to take a much deeper look. I think this company has some really interesting technology, and while they have some issues, those are all solvable issues, and I think we should get more heavily engaged." So I came, we looked, we talked to the board, talked to the CTO, co-founder of the company, who's still with us, and got pretty excited about the company's technology, and even more excited about what we think or thought at the time we could do with it. And so in November, I came on as CEO. The company has been around for almost 30 years. It had its roots in secure networking for the Department of Defense and other federal agencies on the DoD side of the house, versus the civilian agencies. But early on started collecting information from the internet in its early days, and has kept collecting that information ever since. And at this point, the core technologies that we have are all based on this worldwide database of IP addresses, domain names, routes, traffic, and the characterizations of the things on the internet that are behind those IP addresses and domain names, which gives us a really rich repository of reputation, good and bad, if you will, in terms of um, reputation on the internet. Our products that we've been selling and still continue to sell in the federal government are, you should think of them more as investigative tools that can be used to figure out what happened retrospectively, if something bad may have happened in your environment, if you've been hacked or whatever, or if you need to find out, good guys and bad guys on the internet. But about 2 years ago, the company took that same underlying database and created an appliance, a service with the appliance that could be used to enhance cybersecurity from a commercial standpoint. And the goal was to sell this to businesses and of all sizes, small, medium, large, and also to government entities and others that might be interested in the kind of protection that our technology provides. And we, over time with our customers, have discovered that we're really good at a couple of things that appear to be big gaps in other cybersecurity technologies. And these are helping you see things that you're not seeing that are going on in your network today, and knowing things about the activity on your network that you don't typically know about today. So we don't replace things that are in your cybersecurity stack today, but we do help make what you have better, no matter what it is you're already using. And here at Intrusion, that's exactly what we do. We use our own technology with a stack of other cybersecurity technologies, and that combination, we think, gives us a much better level of protection than anything else we can find. Specifically, we're good at two things that I'll mention that are of great concern, I think, to CIOs and cybersecurity professionals today. The first one is zero-day attacks. These have become more and more and more prevalent. These are attacks that have no known footprint or fingerprint, no known malware attached to them. They are just of first impression, and they happen, and in a lot of cases sneak past all of the technology that a company or an organization may have put in place. And we do a good job of detecting those things because we have this great reputation database and we know a lot about where these things come from and the routes that they take to get places and some of those kinds of things. And so again, we don't claim that we're 100% on 0 days, but in all of our testing and comparative work, we believe we do a better job than anybody else at this point on 0 days. And the other thing that we're good at is the insider thing. So if you're a CIO, you have to assume that you have infected devices and applications and malware already in your network somewhere. I've never seen any kind of IT environment that's 100% clean and has no dormant, at least infected devices or malware. And at some point, all of that infected stuff or some part of it wakes up and calls home and says, "Here I am. What do you want me to do?" And in many cases, those call homes get by existing technologies. And we do a superb job at detecting those call homes through a combination of our reputation database and some other techniques that we use in this Shield appliance, which is the new product that I was referring to earlier. Today, we sell that product as an appliance that sits behind your firewall typically, and either allows or blocks traffic based on this reputation database that we have. But we're introducing in the third quarter here 2 new products. One is a cloud-based version of Shield, and the other is an endpoint protection that uses Shield technology as its basis as well. And so we believe that between the 3, the appliance that would go in your data center, the cloud product that would go in your cloud environment, and the endpoint, we have pretty good coverage for all of the concerns that a CIO or a CISO might have for their environment. So that's a high-level overview. We're pretty excited about the opportunities that we think the new products will introduce for us. Among other things, it's going to be much easier to try these new products just from a logistics and a level of effort perspective. We realize that asking a CIO or a CISO to go put an appliance behind the firewall in their data center is a much heavier lift than trying out a cloud or an endpoint experience would be. And so that's our goal with these new products. In addition to covering those important spaces, we want to make it a lot easier to try and buy our underlying technology. And our hope is that having done that, our customers will be interested in the appliance as well. So that's the high-level overview. The company is about 60 or so folks right now, and we're on track with our development of these new products. And as I said, we'll be introducing those in the third quarter with demo capability coming shortly. So that's my story for now, and happy to take any questions.
Yeah, so appreciate it, Tony. And just, I guess, just to summarize, I mean, you talked about your previous experience. Obviously, it's impressive. So what is it? I mean, what is it about Intrusion that makes you think there's, to relocate yourself to Texas? I mean, you've been working for these large companies that makes you go for this small company. What is it about it that's so fascinating to you?
Well, I'll just tell you the story. I walked through the RSA conference 2 weeks ago, and I saw a lot of Me Too technologies, as I have every year when I've gone to the RSA conference. It's yet another firewall, yet another intrusion detection prevention technology, yet another, you name it.
Uh-huh.
And when I saw what Intrusion did, I felt very strongly this is unique, number one, and also this has great promise. And the reason is one of the things that I have always worried about is, as we all realize, cybersecurity is a very dynamic, fluid sort of space. New threats coming along all the time, new things to worry about, lots more devices now that we're being asked to manage. But also, as a CIO, what we're being asked to manage is a lot more complex than it used to be. We used to just worry about the stuff that's inside our environment, but today we're connected to an array of suppliers and customers, and partners, and all the rest of it. And so the network that we have to worry about literally is the internet.
Yeah.
It's not just our own network. And I was a big supporter of zero trust when I was federal CIO, and I've done a lot of work in that space since then. And in a way, this is sort of our way of giving zero trust, but for the internet,
Yeah.
plus your local network, and we think we complement very nicely all of the other things that an organization may already have in place.
And what is it about? I mean, what is it that's so unique, I guess, or special about the IP there at Intrusion, and how does it differ from what's already available?
Well, it really is this reputation information that we've collected over 30 years. That's the fundamental underlying stuff. Now, we've combined that with other data that we get, and we're constantly looking at new data sources to enrich this core database that we have. But the core database is really the thing, the magic that makes it all work. Now, having said that, anybody can go out and start collecting this information yesterday or today if they want to, but they won't have the 30-year history that we have. And that's what really makes it unique, because we know how the bad guys have moved around. We know how they relay stuff. We know it's kind of like growing up in a city. You know where the bad neighborhoods are. We know where the bad stuff on the internet is.
But I guess the thing that I'm trying to wrap my head around and never fully understand is, like, what's the value of having, say, an IP address from, say, 2005, when, it's likely changed a lot since then. Things have changed a lot since then. I mean, or, say a VPN, can't someone like, Russian or North Korean or whatever, make it look like they're somewhere else? I mean, how is it valuable to have that old stuff?
Well, we know how it's changed over time, and we also know what's consistent. So that's very valuable information. And it's not just the IP address, it's the things that are behind that IP address, who the institutions or actors are, the nature of the traffic that has come from and gone to those IP addresses, and other things like that give us this rich history. And then we can draw conclusions from that. Is this a place where malware has come from historically? Is this a relay point that bad guys have used in the past, or a data center where bad things come from, or on the other hand, a good one? So what we tell our customers, and it's true, is our whitelist is a lot bigger than everybody else's whitelist, and our blacklist is a lot bigger than everybody else's blacklist. And by definition, that gives you much less gray in the middle that you have to work with, where you don't know whether it's good or bad.
Yeah. So, and to that point, I think, I was obviously, about this, others may not, but I was on a call with a cybersecurity guy that you guys were gracious enough to show him, some of your product, and I was on that call, and I think I can see now, but I'd like you to explain it to people, because, the former CEO used to boast about how many things were blocked, and it was like, well, how could you do anything if, on the internet, if there's that much? But it seems like a lot of that stuff is maybe, like you said, dormant. and
Yeah.
just sitting there waiting to wake up. And so you are, but what's the false positive that you guys get? And then is a lot of the stuff that you get, is it stuff that's just sitting there dormant, waiting to potentially be awakened by the bad actors? What can
Well,
you say about?
yeah, there's really a couple of different things in there. That's
Okay.
a complex question, but there's a couple of things in there that I think are important to mention. The first one is whenever you go browsing on the web, using your internet, well, Explorer's dead now, but
Right,
Google
Edge.
Chrome or Edge or whatever you're using.
Uh-huh.
What you don't see is all of the things that are going on behind the scenes, the second and third and fourth and fifth order connections that are being made for adware and tracking and all kinds of other things that are going on. And so one of the demos that we do with people is we just start up a session with them and their network and a browser, and we let them browse to all the normal websites that they ordinarily go to. And we capture that traffic, and then after 5 minutes or so, we show them the report of all the places that their browser went that they probably didn't know about. And invariably, there's connections to China and Russia and other places where you say, I don't really want to be connected to those kinds of places. And there's no reason for me to be connected to those kinds of places. Now, most of the time when we block that stuff, it doesn't have any impact on your browsing experience at all, but it does protect you from getting infected by things coming back to your device from those bad places that you might be inadvertently connecting to. So that's one sort of big benefit. The second thing I would say that happens quite often is even if it's not a browser that's connecting, let's say it's a application in your environment. Let's say it's a server of some kind. Well, servers ordinarily should only respond when talked to. They're not a device that's meant to be, talking to other things in the environment. And things like thermostats or, uh, IP cameras and so on generally aren't supposed to talk to your SAP environment or, other applications that you have running there. It's very specific what they should be communicating with. And we detect a lot of that kind of traffic and kind of point out that, hey, these look suspicious. These kinds of connections ordinarily shouldn't be being made in your network or going out from your network. Now, what we recommend to people is that with our appliance in place and later on with our cloud, that you go in observe mode for a little while. So you're reporting on the things that would have been killed and making sure that you have something that's tuned well for your specific environment. And then go into enforce mode.
Okay.
And our customers, once they see the kinds of things that we see and show them the kinds of things that we know about what's going on in their network, they go, oh yeah, okay, I get it. I want these things, but I don't want these other things.
Right. Yeah, I know. I mean, from talking to and of course, I shared that in the article, but I mean, I talked to the MSP that you guys have a partnership with, Intercore Technologies, and they were speaking to that, and even how, you stopped an attack at one of their customers where a local college had been attacked like, a week before, and you guys shut it down there on there. So, that was a powerful story to hear from them. What about one of the things that a lot of people have asked me about, and you mentioned it today, I haven't heard a ton about it, these 0-day attacks, so how are you good at identifying or stopping those? Because that was the thing a lot of people asked about. Well, okay, they have this, database full of all of this old information, but how, the big thing now is 0-day attacks. So how does your IP help with that? And is that connected at all to your database of information, or is that something totally separate?
No, it's, so when we say this historic database, it's historic, but also current. So we see what's currently going on as well, not just what historically has happened. But I would make it, this is not a perfect analogy, but guys who rob banks usually case the place first. They look and see what time the bank opens, where the guards are positioned. They
Sure.
do surveillance. They engage in certain kinds of activity, and among other things, they try to figure out what cybersecurity technology you're using. They're probing and testing your environment all the time. And the places they do that from, by and large, we know about, and the ways they do it, we know about. And so when they actually launch an attack, we know who they are, we know where they're coming from, we've seen them before, and we don't have to have a fingerprint or a footprint. We just have to correlate it to past activity that we've seen on the internet, is sort of a layman's way of explaining it.
And how are you guys able to process all of that information from 30 years and have it not bog down your own program, let alone the network?
That's part of our IP.
Your secret sauce, huh?
It's a very fast, very efficient engine. Let's just say that.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Well,
and I should point out, one of the things with the current appliances, we're limited to processing data streams of around 10 megabits per second today with the current technology. But we've laid out a roadmap that we feel reasonably we can get to 20 megabits per second within the next year, and we're aiming for 40 and greater just beyond that. So increasingly with the appliance, we should be able to service bigger bandwidths as we go forward. We're investing heavily in that. Obviously, with the cloud, we can scale almost infinitely.
Right.
But today we do have that limitation with the appliance.
So, I mean, it seems like most, if not all, of this IP already existed at Intrusion before you were there. And I'm just wondering, why is it that they haven't been acquired or already partnered with a larger cybersecurity company or IT company? I mean, they've been around for quite a while and still such a small company, and up until recently even just did rather small work for the Department of Defense. So what's the reason for that in your opinion?
I think there was a couple of things. One, this new Shield product line is relatively new. It's 2 years or less in formation, and so that's one thing. The second thing is, I don't think we were selling it properly. We, at one point under the former CEO, hired around 60 salespeople to go out and try to peddle this. And I just think that's an inappropriate way to go to market, given our size and all of that sort of stuff. So we're refocused now on a channel focused model where we're partnering with channel partners and MSPs and MSSPs who can take us to the customers that they already have. I can't fight the billions of dollars that the big cybersecurity companies are spending on national advertising and all that kind of stuff, but I can compete when the channel guys are out there and dealing directly with a customer and hearing what their cybersecurity needs and concerns are, it's a lot easier for them to say, hey, there's this company Intrusion that I think, can address the very concerns that you might have. So we hired a very experienced channel manager, and we're seeing that pay off already in terms of channel partners who are investing in training, understanding what we can do, and conversely, what we don't do, and can fit us into their product mix appropriately. And so that's the way we're going to market. The second thing is we've completely changed the messaging. As you mentioned, we were claiming to be the all singing, all dancing solution to your cybersecurity issues. And quite frankly, I just don't think anybody could or should make that claim.
Right.
If they can rightly do so, I want to meet them. But I know of no such thing that exists. And I think being honest with our customers and being clear about what we do and what we don't do is, part of a successful approach.
Sure.
And then, I think lastly, as I got here, the existing product had some issues around reliability and performance that we've now addressed, and our sales partners are quite comfortable now taking this out, and they know it's not going to crash or bring a network down or engage in other bad behavior that let's just say happened more than once in the past. But we're well past that now. So
good. So speaking of the partnerships, and you've mentioned on the public calls a couple of times that you expect at least one, maybe even two, I don't know, joint ventures is the right word, or partnerships with some major players in the cybersecurity space, and you've sort of guided for that to happen in this next quarter, Q3, which is coming up soon. Is that still on track, and what can you tell us about that?
Yeah, well, I think, as everyone probably on the call would relate, these things take on their own life. But we're talking with three strategic partners. They're each very different, and the potential arrangement would look quite different depending on what we do. But generally speaking, it is to partner with them and either include intrusion technology in their existing product or existing service or existing business offering. Let me say it that way.
Okay.
And in each case, there's some technical integration that will be required. And so I feel pretty good, as I've said many times, that we'll do one of these deals in Q3. There's a possibility in this fiscal year we could do two. I think it's probably unlikely that we'll do three, just because of the level of effort required,
sure.
our own bandwidth and other kinds of things. So one's the goal, two's a stretch goal, and
So do you think, when you talk about Q3, are you thinking that that would be like when the partnership is agreed upon, or would that be like it's actually ready to start earning revenue stage?
No, I think we'll announce the deal in Q3, and then depending on the amount of work that we determine needs to be done, it's sometime after that
Sure.
Revenue would come. But in all cases, my ask is that the partner company make some investment with us. It's not just an Intrusion financed arrangement, because there's benefits to both sides. So we'd look for some, commensurate investment in the joint product offering and so on.
So that kind of, I guess, probably makes sense how we should understand the financing deals that you've done. I think, roughly a little under 5 million each, that are pretty short term in terms of their maturity. Is that sort of what you're thinking? Or is it?
Yeah, our goal was to have enough operating cash to get us through this fiscal year, to make the R&D efforts, to support the rebranding and,
Right.
all of the efforts we needed to make to enhance our channel support. And all of that's going nicely as I would have expected it
Good.
to. And I think the team's just done a marvelous job of pulling together and uniting around this new set of directions that we've laid out. So I'm feeling pretty good. Of course, as CEO, you worry all the time.
Right.
I'm, not trying to be overconfident. That can kill you, but I am feeling, reasonably good about where we are.
So, like looking at the bigger picture, what do you see as your total addressable market, and what type of customers you look at mostly, at enterprise customers, or will also be selling to consumers? What's the thinking on those types of bigger
Yeah,
picture items?
yeah, I don't see us as a consumer play, at least not directly. There may be in the future somebody who says, I want to offer what Intrusion has as a part of a service that they sell to consumers. But I
Sure.
don't see us doing that directly. Our target market is really, small, medium business, enterprise, up to very large enterprise. So pretty big, you know, uh, breadth of market there. And I think, as I've said, if you think of us as sort of a good overlay on all of the other cybersecurity technology that you have already invested in, I think we can capture a fraction of that market, of the overall cybersecurity market. Um, but we'll never be I don't think the dominant player. We're not going to replace somebody's firewall technology and
Right.
entirely, um, or antivirus or whatever else they may have.
And why is that? Why do you think you won't?
Um, well, at least not in the near term. We just don't have the capital, the engineering resources, and all of that sort of thing to stretch too far. We will do some incremental investment, and we'll probably do some acquisitions over time, and other partnerships. And so I do expect us to grow nicely. But cyber is a pretty big space, and
Right.
kind of I don't have world dominance,
Right.
sort of
Right.
aspirations for this. I'll be happy with good growth, organic and inorganic.
Sure. Well, I mean, and when you say that good growth, what type of, what type of growth, what type of revenue are you looking at, say, uh, a year or two from now, 5 years from now? What do you think is possible?
We're at 10 million, give or take, annually right now. I
Hmm.
can see us being, you know, 40, 50 million, in the next year. And then, we'll see how the cloud, products and the endpoint products, go, but, we
Hmm.
have aspirations beyond that. So I
Good.
think when you get to 100 million, you start to be interesting, in the marketplace.
Well, see, that's what I was gonna say is like so you said, you don't necessarily Intrusion doesn't necessarily have the resources, to be a bigger player, replace someone's firewall, whatever. But given the value of your IP, if it is what you think it is, it seems like you would be of interest to larger players. Perhaps they would be interested in gaining that. Is that a way to think about it, or is it
Yeah.
just
No, several people have asked me bluntly, would you consider being acquired? And my answer is always the same: at the right price, absolutely.
Oh yeah, I mean that I don't even know why people ever ask that. I mean, of
Yeah,
course, it's
yeah.
like
We're a public company and we have
right,
shareholders, and if it's in the shareholders' interest, it would be
Right.
dumb not to.
Yeah.
But, at the same time, I think to maximize the investment that's already been made,
Yeah.
we need to let this play out and let our teams do their work. And I think, frankly, prove to the world that this really is what I think it is, and others think it is. And I think we're going to know, this next year, whether that's the case or not.
Sure.
We have to do the work, and then we have to convince people. And that's on us to do that. So.
Right. So I just wanted to touch real briefly on the more traditional side of Intrusion's business with the government, DoD. Sounds like you expected that to start picking up here, even in this current quarter, which obviously we're almost through with that, and then continuing throughout the year. Now that there's an actual budget, is that still kind of your way of thinking there, that you can get that back up to kind of where it had been?
Yeah, we have. We see a good pipeline of opportunities. We're experiencing some in the current quarter. The next quarter looks even better from that perspective. Fourth quarter, we don't know, because we don't know whether there's another CR or not.
Okay.
We're always going to be under the gun from that perspective.
Yeah.
If there's a CR, it flattens you out wherever you are. And
Okay.
then when there's no CR, then you have the opportunity to accelerate. What we are doing differently, though, than has been the practice in the past, is when a CR happened, we were just kind of wringing our hands and saying, "Oh crap, there's a CR." I view that as a business development opportunity to go out and, while things are frozen, showcase what we can do, so that when the CR lifts, we're the first guys at the door, knocking on the door. And so we will continue to invest in that government business. I think we have more opportunity on the DoD side, and we also have almost unlimited opportunity on the civilian side, both federally and state and local as well. So we will continue to invest in that space.
And when you say that, are you talking about with Shield, or are you talking about with the
Both
Okay.
our traditional products, and then also Shield.
Okay. And I'm guessing that as the former federal CIO, you probably have a few contacts on that side of things.
You bet. You bet. You bet.
Okay.
But they're all, all of us are facing the same kinds of threats. It's ransomware, it's 0 days, it's
Right.
Insider stuff. It's it's relentless. And everybody I know in that business wants to sleep better at night, and
Sure.
we try to help them get better sleep.
Right. So I know this is kind of a touchy subject, but I think it needs to be asked, given what's happened in, before your arrival, the recent past with the former CEO. To my knowledge, I don't think he ever bought any stock. I'm sorry if I'm wrong about that. And to date, I don't think you've filed that you've bought any, but you've made it pretty clear, even on public calls, that you're eventually planning to do so. I just wonder if you can offer any clarity on your thinking there. And I just think it's important, as I said, given the recent past, that investors hear about that.
Yeah. No, I actually don't know about the former CEO. I know some of our current board members have invested and probably will invest in the future. I've committed publicly that in July I will make a personal investment in the company, and we're still on track to do that as well. So it'll be disclosed when it occurs.
Sure.
But
Sure.
I'm happy to be able to do that.
Good. Well, and I imagine right now you're under a period where you can't. I know you have very limited windows when you can. So
Exactly.
Okay. I think that is all the questions that I have. I don't know if anyone else here, if you're willing to take questions from anyone else.
Happy.
Got Brad
happy
on, and people can maybe post in the chat. If they have a question, we can bring it to you. I really appreciate your time, Tony. This has been wonderful.
Well, thanks for the opportunity. It's always good. I love the questions, actually. It helps me
Well, and I always thought,
understand where people's heads are,
I just had a sense there was something there, with Intrusion, and then I like the way you're talking about it. Not I like your language there, not the all singing, all dancing, but you do have a place in the market, I think.
Yeah.
What?
Well, and that's, the basis of these strategic discussions is we've, I think, convinced these strategic partners that we fill a nice gap in their existing
Right.
offerings, and that this is worth, having a conversation about. So.
Sure. Go ahead. Somebody was.
Well, I started to say one thing I wasn't quite. I'm a little fuzzy on, and I probably should know this. But what was the company selling or trying to do before compared to what you're trying to do now? Can you kind of highlight a couple of the big differences?
Well, the Shield product was what the company was trying to sell from a commercial perspective. Our other tools are, as I mentioned, sort of investigative tools called Savant and TraceCop, and that's primarily what we sell, with some consulting services to the federal government. Shield was a new product conceived by our CTO, who's Joe, who's still with us, and the now former CEO. And that was meant to address the commercial market. Unfortunately, the former CEO kind of got out ahead of his skis, to use that phrase, and made some public statements about its success in the marketplace and capabilities that were, let's just say, a bit exaggerated. And that was the reason we had a SEC investigation and class action lawsuit, which we've now settled, and other things that we've had to address over the last 6 months. So fortunately, all of those addressable problems are either solved or are behind us, and we now have a pretty clear runway ahead of us to just go execute on our investments and make Shield in particular successful.
Thank you.
How has the integration into the legacy team there at Intrusion gone for you?
I think it's gone really well. We've introduced some new processes, both on the engineering team. So we've moved to a more agile, flexible development set of methodologies. The engineering team has responded very well to that. I think they're, beginning to daily recognize some of the benefits of that process, both, in their own, quality of life and in, quality of the product that's coming out of that process. So that's been, I think, quite well received and something we can build on. And it also makes it easier for us to integrate with third parties that we can use in a more flexible way as well, because we're using industry standard agile processes and development methods and so on. So that, I think, has gone well. Sales and marketing, we've had to just pretty much rebuild from scratch. And I really like where that's evolved to as well. You'll see, new websites, new branding, new evolved messaging over the next several months from us. And I'm, quite happy with what I see going on there. We've switched out investor relations, and I'm happy with the way that team is supporting us. We hope to attract new and additional investors from our traditional base, and they've been very helpful in understanding what it's going to take to do that. And we also switched out our legal team, the external teams that we were using. For the most part, there's a few that we've kept, and I'm happy with the service that we're getting there as well. So it feels to me like a brand new day or a brand new start in some sense, but with a very trustworthy, collaborative team that I really enjoy working with every day.
Tony, I'm not sure if I missed this, but from the Shield side, there was some announcements a while back of customers that you were working with. I believe Kimberly-Clark was one. Is there still ongoing relationships with those customers, and is there ongoing business, or has there been some turnover, with the recent changes in the company?
Kimberly-Clark is not a customer currently. It's the one sort of public announcement that we had as a customer that's no longer. But I think the company has done a good job of retaining all the other customers that were announced, at least the ones that I'm aware of. And we've gained some new customers. So, when I look at churn, it's within very respectable sort of spaces. The part of the problem that we had with the former CEO is he had greatly exaggerated what the Kimberly-Clark relationship was. And that, rightly so, kind of annoyed Kimberly-Clark. And as they had a change in management and got served with subpoenas as a part of our class action lawsuit and SEC investigation and so on, decided that it was in their best interest to sever the relationship. So that was unfortunate, and I wish that had been a better separation. But we've made peace with them, and there may be an opportunity at some point for us to go back and re-engage. But for now, that one is off the table. But I would say our relationship with our customers is only turned a lot more positive over the last few months as we've made product improvements and shared our roadmap and re-engaged with the new model that I was talking about.
All right, looks like there's one more question that just came in from the chat. How has marketing approach changed from the Ward-Paxson era in your mind beyond the small put marketing strategy? A lot of prior investors had a considerable frustration with the patient method to the marketing of Intrusion products even prior to your predecessor.
I'm not sure exactly what their marketing approach was. It's well before my time, but I think they were primarily working with the government customer. That was kind of, their bread and butter, if you will, and leveraged a lot of the relationships that they had built with our government customers over a really long period of time. And that worked for a long time. But I don't think there was ever any significant effort from anything I can tell to get it more into the commercial space and do the kinds of things we're now doing with our Shield family of products. So I would say it's a different era and a different mind space, if you will, from both a product and a marketing perspective than where the company was before. And you may be referring to, I do recall that there was one pretty significant blip in the company's history where there was a windfall of government contracts one year where, or maybe it was slightly more than a year, but there was a lot of, spend it or lose it kind of funding that the company was able to take advantage of from a federal government perspective. And those things happen, but that's not a sustainable sort of model over a long period of time. So we're going to, continue to invest in our government customers in a more, I'll say, methodical way than probably was done in the past.
Well, thank you, Tony. Really appreciate your time.
My pleasure.
Yeah. Good luck. We'll look forward to the results for the second quarter coming out, I'm sure, in the next month or so. So thank you.
Great. Thanks for having me today.
You bet. Bye.
Take care. Bye.
Some or all the speakers may maintain positions in the securities discussed in this podcast. The views in this podcast expressed are those of the speakers, not Breakout investors. This podcast is for informational purposes only and should not be relied upon as a basis for investment decisions. Neither Breakout Investors nor any of its affiliates makes any representation or warranty, express or implied, as to the accuracy or completeness of the statements or any information presented by this podcast and any liability, including in respect of direct, indirect, or consequential loss or damage, therefore is expressly disclaimed. No one on this podcast is an investment advisor, and no one is providing investment advice. Before investing in any company's stock, you must do your own research. Thank you for listening.